by dint of size, rank, age, status as paying customers, or infirmity. The man in the red coat followed them all. He was last in line because he chose to be last in line, and because he was watching behind and below as befitted a caravan guard, which was what he was. At least it was what he was today, though the caution of the guardian was not the only anxiety gnawing in his breast. He was a dead man, or he had been, and he wore the name of his former profession still. He and the other walkers stayed to the edge of the river for 2 reasons. First, they did not have cleats. Those were reserved for the people hauling the becalmed ice ships, and so they sensibly kept to the rougher ice and better traction along the bank. Second, the 4 ice ships dragged and groaned in their heavy traces. The pilots made a profession of bringing people safely through the mountains called the Steles of the sky, it was true. And it was true also that it was mere superstition to cling to the riverbanks when, if, by some mishap, the ice ships were to break loose, they were unlikely to meekly follow the course of the river back down again. Even knowing this, the dead man still edged off to the left whenever he could. It made him feel a tiny bit safer, even if they were walking from a place where he had never belonged to another one where he expected to feel restless and alone once more. He had learned young that it was fruitless to worry about things he could not control, and there was very little here that he could have any effect on. But he could not seem to find his calm, or, as his long-lost beloved Zillah would have said with a smile, his resigned soldier's centre, and let events take what course they would. It wasn't the caravan duty that still had him so agitated, when they had left Asmarakanda months before, and unless you counted the lizard-folk brigands and the wildfire in the grasslands, those months had been mostly uneventful. No, what he was worrying about, still, was that it had been months. He and the Gage carried a message, and that duty was the real motivation for their travel, because they had been entrusted with it by the so-called Eyeless One, the most powerful wizard in the world's greatest city, which was the teeming market centre called Messaline. The mere existence of that message, and his charge to deliver it, left the dead man jittering. Wizards generally had terrible selfish reasons for what they did, but the Eyeless One was different. This duty came from a being who had preserved Messaline in its time against plague and invasion, and while the dead man had no idea what catastrophe might result from a failure, he was confident that it would be far worse than a mere destroyed caravan, and a few dozen souls perished in the snow. As if to give the lie to his thoughts, the wreckage of other caravans were heaped here and there, abandoned under a half-hearted cover of drifted snow, providing no additional reassurance. Since breaking camp that morning, the caravan had passed at least a half-dozen shattered wagons and staved ice ships, eyeless and picked over as scavenged carcasses. In summer there was the danger of avalanche. In winter there was the winter. Like the brass-fitted Gage at the top of the column, the dead man had no public name in particular. Unlike the Gage, he hadn't neglected his cowl, and wore a veil drawn up to conceal and warm his face, leaving revealed only a set of eyes that few dared meet. He wore the red felted skirted coat that marked him as a dead man, one of the elite royal guards of a caliphate that no longer exactly existed. He had not set the livery of his fallen empire.